Hey everybody, welcome back to the Chaotic Little Book Corner. My name's Acacia. Today I'm going to be doing my top 11 books that didn't make it to my top 10 of 2018. These are the honorable mentions. I have two tied at 8th place, and I will dive right in with my books. I hope you enjoy. So at number 10, we have The Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. This book is fabulous. I enjoyed it so much. However, if you are at all like me and anxiety-wise, this could cause a couple nights of no sleep and stress to the max. I definitely would say that this is one to go into ready to be upset and angry and stressed and overwhelmed and frustrated. The characters in this book are so real and vivid, and it's terrifying. The premise of this book is that a little girl named Wynn is playing outside of her summer home when a man comes up to her and starts to talk to her, and then he says, "Wynn, I need your help. There's something wrong." And Wynn gets scared and runs inside to her two fathers and says, "Daddy, there's someone here." And these people with masks and homemade weapons start to walk up to the house and barge in and say, "We need your help to save the world." It is terrifying. It is a house invasion story. It really packs a punch, and it definitely is one that I enjoyed, but it kept me up for a couple of nights, and it woke me up a couple of nights. I couldn't shower with the shower curtain closed. Then we have Salvage the Bone by Jesmyn Ward. I read all but one of Jesmyn Ward's books this year. I am going to say that she is now an auto-buy for me. I'm super excited to read more of her works when they come out in the future and to finish with that final book that I have to read. This is the story of a young girl who finds out she's pregnant right before Hurricane Katrina, and it is a story of her and her family trying to survive Hurricane Katrina. I really appreciated it, really loved it. It's my favorite of all the Jesmyn Wards that I read this year, and I would highly recommend it. If you're looking for where to start with Jesmyn Ward, this one is my favorite, and I would say it's definitely one to start with. Tied at number 8, we have two books. We have Sorry to Disrupt the Peace by Patty Yim Cantrell, and we have The Wildlands by Abby Genai. This one is the story of a young girl who finds out that her brother committed suicide, and she has to go home to try and clean up the mess, to try and help her family, to try and grieve, to try and go to the funeral, and everything is going wrong, and her emotions are all out of control, and her grief is completely overwhelming her, and her family is not dealing with the grief any better. So it is a family drama. It is dark, it is twisted, it is really wonderful, and it has a lot of meaning. I definitely would recommend it. Another family drama is The Wildlands. This is completely beautiful. This is an advanced reader copy. Still sick. This is an advanced reader copy. I plan to buy the full copy at some point. I just haven't gotten around to it yet, but I loved this book. This is the story of Cora, who her brother disappears on her after there is a level 5 tornado that takes away her home and her father, and her oldest sister becomes in charge of the family, and they have to move into a trailer to survive. And the way that she pays the rent is by telling the story of their tragedy to as many news sites that will listen, and that's how they make ends meet until she can get a job. And her brother takes off thinking that is the worst way to do things, and one night he comes back after a tragedy has happened within the town, and Cora, knowing nothing about her brother now that he has left, believes him and tries to go with him. And it is a really wonderful story, really touching, really hard to digest, but really worth the read. Then we have number 7, which is The Sandman by Lars Kepler. I picked this one up. This is the 4th in the series. I picked this one up first and then went back and read the other 3. I started with number 1, 2, and 3 after I read the 4th, so I would definitely say this is my favorite, though, of all of them. I will read whatever Lars Kepler comes out with in this series. This is the... what is it called? The Jonah Linna series, and it is definitely worth reading. I enjoyed it as a detective series. It's really dark, it's really twisted, has a lot of bumps throughout it. I really enjoyed it. This is a story of a man who is in prison and he is not speaking to anybody, but his victims one of his victims has escaped and has come back from what was assumed to be dead and says that his sister is still alive, and it is a fight to find the sister, but the man in prison isn't talking and they realize he must have an accomplice outside of the jail and he is communicating with him somehow, but no one knows how, so they send a detective in undercover. Really good. Then we have number 6. This is Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. I went on a thriller kick. I'm sorry. It really it got me for a while there. This is definitely wonderful. There is a new TV series out. I haven't watched it yet. I just feel like I'm nervous that it's going to be done wrong. This is the story of Camille, who is a writer for a newspaper, I believe, and something happens in her hometown and her editor wants her to go cover the story, but she has a lot of issues with her hometown and what it is and how it works, and she has issues with her family, but she picks up and goes back to her hometown to try and figure out what's going on, and then realizes that there is a connection between the missing girl that has just occurred and one that occurred earlier in her life. I really enjoyed it. Definitely would recommend it. I like Gillian Flynn a lot. I need to finish reading her books. I haven't done that yet, but we shall see. I hope to do that at some point. Number 5, we have Always Lived in a Castle by Shirley Jackson. I was on a Shirley Jackson kick this year. I read everything she wrote, and I have this book and then another one in my top 10 of 2018. This was my second favorite. I really adored it. My first favorite of all is Bird's Nest, but I read Bird's Nest last year and it was a favorite of last year, so I can't put it in the favorites of this year. You guys understand. It's fine. It's fine. Just so you know. But anyway, this is the story of Meerkat and Mary Cat. I want to call her Mary Cat. I think that's it. Mary Catherine. I always hear her called Mary Cat. Mary Catherine. And she is living with her sister Constance in an abandoned home after their entire family was poisoned, and Constance was found innocent of the poisoning. And the story goes from there. While the town still believes Constance is responsible for the poisoning, they believe this family is evil and they are very shunning of this family. A man comes along and is family to them and tries to be nice to them in some way, shape, or form, but he has ulterior motives, and it is wonderful. Number 4, we have Educated. This was fabulous. I actually sent this to another booktuber for Christmas. I really appreciated this book. I thought it was fabulous. I really enjoyed it. I think it was super interesting. This is the story of Tara, and it's a nonfiction. It is her story about trying to get educated after being in a cult-like family for so long, when the mental health of her family was unstable, and her ability to get education and treatment for illnesses and dangers. It's just amazing and really well done, really well executed. I highly recommend it. It's a really interesting writing style as well, from somebody who is self-taught. She's now been to school, but it still is a self-taught originally person. Number 3 is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. This is absolutely wonderful. I read it and whizzed through it twice in a week. I would definitely recommend this. I need to pick up his second book, Foe. That is a must-read for me, but I haven't picked it up yet. I think it came out 2018 and I just never got around to it, so it's a definite 2019 must read. This is the story of a young girl who is in a car with her boyfriend Jake, and they are headed to meet his parents, and she is contemplating ending the relationship. The story continues and it is dark and twisted and wonderful. I think a few people have said that they spotted the ending before they had the ending. I did not. I was not someone who saw what was coming. So I would definitely say it is potentially possible to go in and not know what's happening. But reading it a second time, knowing what was happening, was still just as invigorating. And I really recommend this book. It was fantastic. Then number 2, we have Freshwater by Aoki Amezi. This is fabulous. I listened to this on audio, and it is a story of Ada. Ada is, this can go one of two ways. I did a full in-depth review. I will link it in the cards. So this could go one way, where you believe that she is speaking to saints and gods within herself, and she is having a relationship that is religious and separate from herself, and there is an entity within her that is living her life vicariously. Or you can read it as I did, which is a conversation about DID, or dissociative identity disorder, and what it's like to live with that sort of mindset. I thought it was a really good interpretation of what DID is like to live with. It was really interesting and really honest. It did address sex, which was a really big part of my trauma, and it's also a really big part of a lot of people's trauma with DID. So it addresses that relationship, and it was really, really important to address that. So there's a couple ways to read this. I'll link my review up above. I definitely would recommend this. A lot of people didn't read it, and I wish more people had. It was fabulous. And then my last book in the honorable mentions, number 1, is Women Talking by Miriam Towes. This one is the story of a Mennonite group where a group of women have been attacked repetitively for a few years, and they realize that the attackers are actually men from within the community. These men are sent off to jail, but the story opens with the men of the community that did not rape these women all getting ready to bail out the men who did rape these women, and are telling the women they either have to forgive the men who raped them or they have to leave the colony. And this is the story of the women having private conversations and discussing whether or not they should forgive or forget or leave. And it is wonderful, absolutely epic. I definitely recommend this. You'll be hearing more about Miriam Towes at some point. I plan to read all of her works in 2019, so, or at least all of the ones I can get my hands on, and that will be fabulous. So that is all of my honorable mentions for 2018. Thank you so much to my Patreons and my newest one, Shelley Passage. Thank you so much for your pledge. I am so excited to see you and to get to know you and to have your input and ideas come towards the channel. Thank you again. I love you all. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you loved it, click that subscribe button down below. If you have any questions, comments, or quandaries, go ahead and link them in the comments. I will talk to you there, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.